Stories around the world to stories here at home. This is the National News Broadcast. A pleasant evening. I'm Dulanjali Ananda.
Good evening, I'm Stefan Delvis. Let's take a look at the main headlines for tonight.
The COVID-19 contracted patient who fled the IDH hospital found in the premises of the National Hospital. The people pledged their support to the program carried out by the President to suppress the underworld and drug trafficking. The Premier promises to transform the Colombo city into a city without shanties. The UNP leader states that history has proved the capability of the United National Party on restoring the economy whenever faced with a collapse. The central bank approves 11,000 million rupees in loans to uplift businesses adversely affected by COVID-19. Diplomatic crisis intensifies between China and the US.
For more local stories in detail, the COVID-19 contracted patient who fled the IDH hospital this morning was found in the premises of the Colombo National Hospital. The patient was redirected to the IDH. The patient in concern is reportedly a COVID-19 positive case detected at the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Center for Narcotics Addiction. He had been transferred to the National Institute on Infectious Disease at Angada on the 15th of July. The police state that this patient has fled at around 2 a.m. Early this morning, Senior DIG Deshabandhu Thenakone states that as soon as this incident was reported, a search operation was launched. Investigations revealed that this patient had crept out of one of the windows of the IDH hospital without attracting the attention of the hospital staff and had fled after jumping over the parapet wall. Thereafter, it was revealed that he had arrived in Petta on foot and had taken a three-wheeler to the Colombo National Hospital. Upon arriving at the Colombo National Hospital, two hospital staff members had identified the patient at the entrance and had alerted the relevant authorities. Police media spokesperson SSP Jaliya Senaratne stated that as the patient in concern had travelled to the Colombo National Hospital in a three-wheeler, the three-wheeler driver has been detained and all interrogations are being conducted according to health and safety guidelines. SSP Senaratne stated that the addiction to narcotics may have been the reason for the patient to flee. He further stated that therefore it is not possible to say that the IDH hospital is unsafe. SSP Senaratne stated that when the said patient had alighted the three-wheeler and had attempted to enter the hospital, he was identified by two staff members and all steps that could be taken immediately were followed. The police media spokesman also stated that as the patient did not gain entry into the premises of the National Hospital, it was possible to prevent the risk of COVID-19 spreading in the hospital. The patient in question, who suffers from a serious addiction to narcotics, is also reported to have been wanted in connection with certain crimes. The patient is a resident of the China Harbour area in Trincomalee by the name of Mohammed Qasim Mohammed Nazim, age 41. Meanwhile, 11 newly confirmed COVID-19 cases were reported in the country today, out of which 9 cases were detected from amongst the inmates of the Kandakadu Drug Rehabilitation Center, whilst the COVID-19 contracted individual was also detected from amongst those who came in close contact with the COVID-19 contracted persons at the rehabilitation center. In addition, a returnee from the United Kingdom was also confirmed to have contracted the virus. The number of fully recovered COVID-19 patients in the country currently stands at 2,094, and this is a percentage of 74.49%. The number of patients undergoing further hospitalized treatment stands at 659, and this accounts for 23.84%.
And now we bring you a global update of the COVID-19 pandemic as of today. The number of global COVID-19 pandemic cases has topped 15 million, with almost 620,000 deaths and almost half of all cases from the US, Brazil and India, the chief of World Health Organization said yesterday. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom said that the pandemic has changed people's lifestyles and the world has entered a new normal of fighting the pandemic.
More than 15 million cases of COVID-19 have now been reported to WHO, and almost 620,000 deaths. Almost 10 million cases, or 2/3 of all cases globally, are from 10 countries, and almost half of all cases reported so far are from just 3 countries. But we will not be going back to the old normal. The pandemic has already changed the way we live our lives. Part of adjusting the new normal is finding ways to live our lives safely. We must remember that most people are still susceptible to this virus. As long as it's circulating, everyone is at risk.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said today he thought the country would be through the coronavirus crisis by mid-2021, but feared there may be a second spike that could overwhelm the health services. While touring an East London doctor's surgery, Johnson was also heard to say people oppose the use of vaccines, such as the one for measles, mumps and rubella. So-called anti-vaxxers were nuts.
And this is our lead nurse, Marina.
Hello, Marina. How are you doing?
Hello.
Nice to see
Fine,
you.
thank
Good
you.
morning, Marina. How
Good
you doing?
morning.
Just on this one. Here we go. Right, so this is, so what goes on in here? You mean like the MMR
Yes.
and the BCG
Yes.
and all that jazz?
All of them.
Because there's all these anti-vaxxers now, isn't it?
Well, Marina can tell you a
They
little
are
bit about
nuts.
how we've achieved that.
Marina, what do you think of anti-vaxxers? Whether it came from the love that flowers between a bat and a pangolin, or however it emerged, it's been a very, very nasty thing for the human race. And I think that by the middle of next year, we will be well on the way. We will be well on the way past it. But I must be clear with people. I do still think that we have tough times ahead in keeping this virus under control, and we have tough times ahead in coming through economically. We want everybody to get a flu jab in the run-up to this winter, and that's why we're rolling out the biggest ever program of flu immunisation, flu inoculation. The reason for doing this is to protect the NHS in the winter months, because obviously we've still got COVID, we've still got the threat of a second spike of COVID, and it's vital therefore to keep that pressure off the NHS by everybody getting a flu jab, and I really hope everybody.
Studies are underway to test whether wearable fitness trackers currently used by professional basketball players and golfers can detect the presence of the COVID-19 virus before symptoms show up. Conway Gittins takes a look.
When NBA superstars like LeBron James return to the court next week for the first official basketball game since the pandemic hit, eyes will be on more than just the score. He will be wearing, along with others in the NBA, a fitness device called an Oura Ring. The ring, produced by Oura Health, is designed to track someone's heart rate and temperature, and is just one of many fitness devices now being tested to see how good they are at sounding an early warning signal about COVID-19 before symptoms appear. A Stanford University research team has enrolled 5,000 users of various devices such as a Fitbit or an Apple Watch. The early results have been promising, says Michael Snyder, who runs the Stanford University School of Medicine's Genomics and Personalized Medicine Department.
In about 80% of the cases, we can see heart rate go up when someone gets ill. And what's powerful is that in at least 70% of the cases, it goes up before at the time they're symptomatic, meaning that we can see this heart rate go up before they realize they're ill. And in some cases, very, very clear, like the very first case we got, the individual was actually elevated 9.5 days before they were symptomatic. So 9.5 days, it's pretty clear they were running around ill and probably infecting other people without knowing it. They were, again, pre-symptomatic. So we think these devices are just very, very good for early detection. The median time is actually 3 days.
Fitbit is conducting its own research with an even larger sample. It has signed up over 100,000 people across the United States and Canada, including 900 already diagnosed with the virus. Tech companies see an opportunity to not only pitch wearables as healthy lifestyle devices, but also as health monitoring devices, which, in the age of COVID-19, could help offset slower sales for other tech gadgets. But wearable makers like Garmin are careful not to oversell. Here's the company's Director of Health Fitness Engineering, Scott Burgett.
First thing I want to make clear is that, the Garmin watch it's not a medical device. It's not an FDA cleared medical device. It's a consumer device, but it has really powerful biometric sensing capabilities. And I'll give an example. So like your heart rate. We measure your heart rate by using an optical sensor that's on the bottom of the watch. Our battery life is so good is that we can go for several days and measure your heart rate 24/7. And by doing that, we're able to tell a lot about your well-being.
But how will consumers feel knowing there's something tracking their bodies 24/7? So far, given the health risks presented by COVID-19, NBA players don't mind, says Aura Health CEO Harpreet Rai.
The feedback we've gotten has been really appreciative and letting players and staff know how they're doing through data. I think it's just given everyone more peace of mind and more safety to be able to, look at their app every morning and know how they're doing.
And the NBA is not the only professional league trying out a device. Professional golfers are sporting a wristband called the Whoop. Company founder Will Ahmed.
Well, Whoop has partnered with the PGA Tour to distribute Whoop to every player, caddy, media member, and they're using the technology to measure everything about their bodies, but especially respiratory rate, which we've found is a very important statistic for understanding COVID-19.
And that gives Whoop access to 1,000 test subjects eager to keep a deadly virus from spreading further and possibly derail already delayed sporting events.
Now in local stories, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka over the past 10 days has approved 11,829 million rupees in loans under the Salbahagia's COVID-19 Renaissance Loan Scheme. These loans are provided to uplift businesses adversely affected by the COVID-19 epidemic. The loan applications can be handed over to the relevant banks before the 31st of August. These loans have been approved under Stage 2 and 3 of the COVID-19 Renaissance Loan Scheme in response to 3,985 applications received from licensed commercial banks. The total number of loan applications approved by the central bank as of yesterday stands at 26,291, whilst the value approved in loans during the said period amounts to 72,079 million rupees. As of yesterday, the sum released by commercial banks in loans for 18,007 beneficiaries island-wide is 45,777 million rupees. These loans are being granted under a 4% annual interest rate for single-owned businesses and self-employment endeavours adversely affected by COVID-19. The loan includes a 6-month concessionary period, whilst repayments can be made up to a period of 24 months. The central bank has introduced this loan scheme to facilitate 150 billion rupees in loans as capital lending.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa joined in several rallies to support the election campaign of candidates contesting under the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna from the Gore district yesterday. The people attending the rally said that they support the program carried out by the president to suppress the underworld and drug trafficking. They also said that the people of Gore will dedicate themselves to give the president a strong parliament at the general election. Rallies were organized by Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna candidate Salia Mendis at the Vatugedra Pradesh Sabha grounds in Palapitiya and candidate Gamini Amarawansha at the TD Samaravira grounds in Karandeniya. At the rally held at the TD Samaravira grounds, a participant who claimed to be a former employee of Sri Lanka Telecom complained to the president that he had served the organization for 13 years, but under the 5-year Yahapalana government, they lost their jobs. The president responded, stating that he will look into the matter. The president also stated that the airport can be reopened, but then he will be told that a second wave and a third wave of COVID has entered the country. In addition, he also stated that he has done everything within his capacity on behalf of war heroes. The participants of the rally advised the president against participating in election rallies. They stated that he should safeguard himself. The president also attended a rally organized by Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna candidate Shan Vijaylal at the Pirsena grounds in Abalangoda. Former State Minister Mohan P. Silva organized another rally at the Rajgama Public.
Leader of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the Colombo city will be transformed into a city without shanties. The Premier expressed this comment at a rally held at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute today. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Professor G.L. Piris and district candidate Premnath Dolavatta attended the rally. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa alleged that over the past 5 years, except for gaining revenge, nothing else was done. He accused the former regime of halting the development work his government had commenced and cited the port city as the best example in this regard. The Premier stated that if work on the port city had been taken forward, by now a majority of the project would have been complete. However, today it does not even have a building. The Premier also stated that when incumbent President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was Defence Secretary, he commenced a program to resolve the housing issue in Colombo. The Premier alleged that when he was defeated, that program also came to a stop. He added now that program will commence to transform Colombo into a city without shanties. Another rally attended by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was held in the Kottawa town today. The rally attended by Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and party members.
අනිත් එක්කෙනා ඒක අල්ල ගන්නවා. මේකට මොකටද මේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ මේ රටේ ඉන්න තරුණයෝ එක්කහුවේ. ඕන් එක්කහුවේ යුද්ධේ රටක් හදන්න අපිත් එක්ක. ඒ නිසා අපි ඕන්ට කියනවා රටක් දියුණු කරන්න අපිත් එක්ක එක්කහුවේ. 2005 අපිට තිබුණ අභියෝගය තමයි ත්‍රස්තවාදය විනාශ කරා. ඒක ඉවරුණයින් පස්සේ අපිට තිබුණා සුනාමියෙන් විනාශ වෙච්ච රට නැවත ගොඩනගන්න. අපි ඒකත් කරා. දැන් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා අපිට කොවිඩ් වසංගතය. දැන් මේකෙන් විනාශ වෙච්ච රට බේර ගැනීමට අපිටයි සිද්ධ මේක වෙන තත්ත්වයක් තිබුණා නම් ආයෙත් උන්ට ඇදිලා අපිටත් ඇදිලා මේක මහා විනාශයක් වඩට ඇති. මෙන්න මෙවැනි තත්ත්වයක් රට තුල නිර්මාණය වෙන්න ඉඩ තියන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයා ඉදිරිපත් කරපු වැඩපිළිවෙල සක්‍රීයව ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න ඕන නම් එතුමා නියෝජනය කර පක්ෂයත් එක්ක තමයි ඕට්ටුවත් එක්ක තමයි ආණ්ඩුවක් තියෙන්න ඕන.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also joined in a rally organised at the Vivekananda Auditorium in Trincomalee yesterday. The rally was also attended by former Minister Susantha Punchinilame and Sri Lanka Podujana Peramana candidates contesting from the Trincomalee district, including Aryavati Galapati and Kapilanuwan Atukorala.
ජනාධිපතිවරයෙකුත් අගමැතිවරයෙක් දෙපැත්තේ ඉන්නකොට ඒ දෙන්න විරසික වෙච්ච වෙලාවට රටේ සංවර්ධනය සම්පූර්ණ මෑන හිටියා. විතරක් නෙවෙයි ඒක ජනතාවට විශාල පාඩුවක් වුණා. ජනාධිපති කියන දේ අගමැති කරේ නැහැ. අගමැති කියන දේ ජනාධිපතිවරයා කරේ නැහැ. මේ විදිහට තමයි රට නිකාං පාවෙලා ඉදිරියට ගියේ. මේ විදිහට රටක් ගෙනියන්න බෑ. රටක් තුල ජනාධිපතිවරයා ඉන්නේ මොන පක්ෂයේද? ඒ පක්ෂය තුල අගමැතිවරයා සහ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය ආණ්ඩුව අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම තිබිය යුතු යුගය දැන් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. එහෙම නැති වුණොත් අර මෛත්‍රීපාල මැතිතුමා හිටවා වගේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා අනිත් පැත්තේ හිටියා වගේ දෙගොල්ලෝ කබෑදෑද ඉන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙවි. ඊට වඩා දෙයක් කරන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. ඒ වගේම ජනාධිපතිවරයාට 69 ලක්ෂයක් ඡන්දෙ දීලා තමුන්නාන්සේලා අනුමත කළ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය අනිවාර්යයෙන් ඉදිරියට ගෙන යන්න පාර්ලිමේන්තුවත් ජනාධිපතිවරයා නියෝජනය කරන දේශපාලන පක්ෂය වන පොහොට්ටුවට තමුන්නාන්සේලා ලබා දෙයි කියන වැඩි විශ්වාසය අපිට තියෙනවා.
UNP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe states that history has proved the capability of the United National Party in restoring the economy whenever it faced collapses. Addressing a rally held in the Digamadula district to ensure the victory of candidates contesting under the United National Party from the district, UNP leader Ranil Wickremesinghe stated that financing will be negotiated and obtained in the form of aid from the International Monetary Fund and other countries that connect with Sri Lanka in the same manner as that of 1977, 2001, 2015 and 2019. The UNP leader pointed out that when the required $6,000 million is obtained, it will result in the appreciation of the rupee. UNP leader Wickremesinghe observed that by the year 2050, population would see a surge by 500 million and the technological know-how to enhance food production is required to meet the demand of an increased population. He proposed the way forward by acquiring the necessary knowledge, aid and market. The UNP leader noted that when the household economy is strengthened, the cash flow increases, enabling an increase in trade activities. He noted that trade in turn strengthens the economy.
A rally to ensure the victory of candidates contesting under the Samagi Janabalavaegya from the Badula district was held at Passara yesterday. The rally was addressed by several contestants, including party leader Sajid Premadasa. Leader of the Samagi Janabalavaegya, former parliamentarian Sajid Premadasa stated that once his party forms a government and he becomes the Prime Minister elected by the people, he will return to Badula to address the grievances of the district. He further stated that his party will be forming a people's government for the betterment of the people. Therefore, he called on the Badula electorate to ensure a spectacular victory for the Samagi Janabalavaegya.
The Ministry of Education states that all government schools will recommence classes for grades 11, 12 and 13 on the 27th of this month. The school time will be from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Classes for the other grades will recommence on the 10th of August. The Education Ministry emphasizes that all students should adhere to health guidelines. Meanwhile, the principals and deputy principals of schools deployed on election activities should be present in their respective schools on the 28th, 29th, 30th and 31st of July. The Ministry of Education notifies the respective school principals within this period to facilitate the election process within the schools to consultations with assistant election commissioners in a manner in which academic activities are not obstructed. The closing date for accepting applications from school and private candidates sitting the GCE Ordinary Level Examination has been extended to the 31st of August. This year, applications need to be submitted online by accessing the official website of the Department of Examinations and duly filling and forwarding the applications according to the given instructions. The website is www.doenets.lk. Thereafter, the remaining sections in the printed copy needs to be filled and sent by post to the Department of Examinations. School applicants need to direct their applications through the respective school principal or Parivenadipati of respective Pirivene, whilst private applicants should submit their duly filled applications online.
Former Presidential Secretary P.B. Abeykoon says that although the heads of the intelligence and defense units requested that the National Security Council convene weekly upon the agreement of former President Maithripala Sirisena and former Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe, the convening of the National Security Council decreased to once a month. Testifying before the Presidential Commission probing the Easter Sunday attacks, he stated that at times a date had to be obtained from the former President for the National Security Council to convene. Commencing his testimony, former Presidential Secretary P.B. Abeykoon stated that he functioned as Secretary to former President Maithripala Sirisena from the 9th of January 2015 to the 30th of June 2017. He stated that he resigned from his post due to personal reasons. At this point, the Additional Solicitor General representing the state questioned the witness as to whether the National Security Council convened during his tenure. In response, the former Presidential Secretary stated that although initially the Security Council convened weekly, it was not possible to convene the Council weekly since the then President had to undertake foreign visits and taking into consideration that there were no serious issues pertaining to the security of the country. The former Presidential Secretary disclosed before the Commission that although the heads of the intelligence and defense units requested that the National Security Council be convened weekly upon the agreement of former President Maithripala Sirisena and former Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe, the convening of the National Security Council did not take place on a weekly basis. He further disclosed that when the then government initially assumed power at the end of a convened meeting, the date of the next meeting was decided. However, thereafter there had been occasions where a date had to be obtained from the previous president for the National Security Council to convene. At this point, the Commission inquired as to whether the dispute between the former President and Premier was a hindrance to the meetings. In response, the witness stated that since the inception certain issues prevailed between the duo, however, they did not manifest publicly during that time. The Commission inquired as to whether there was a mode for the heads of intelligence units to alert the President of aspects concerning national security in between the convening of two National Security Council meetings. The former Presidential Secretary responded stating that when on duty at the President's office, he has witnessed direct encounters between the President and Director of the State Intelligence Service Dilanta Jayawardena. In such situations, he further stated that there were occasions when he himself mediated to facilitate such meetings. The State Additional Solicitor General queried as to whether topics concerning religious extremism were discussed at such meetings. The witness stated that such areas were discussed and further stated that on a particular occasion the intelligence units had disclosed that a group had left the country to join the ISIS. The witness added that religious extremist meetings taking place in the north and the east were also discussed. The witness also stated that it was revealed to the National Security Council in 2017 that through the madrasa school system in the country, Muslim youth were being diverted towards extremism. The witness further stated that the intelligence units had notified the National Security Council that Muslim women wearing the burqa could have an impact on national security, and that this concern is evident when taking note of incidents in which Muslim men had been found engaging in malpractices whilst wearing the burqa. The former Presidential Secretary pointed out that no decision was taken to halt such practices, but only instructions were provided to the defense units to inquire into this matter. The witness added that instructions were given for investigations to be conducted in a manner in which national and religious harmony and the elements of good governance are not breached. Former Presidential Secretary P.B. Abeykoon stated that although the relevant officers, including himself, were of the opinion that a decision should be taken on halting such practices, the political authority did not permit it.
Now, the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund has granted 36 million rupees to support highly necessary PCR tests conducted by the Ministry of Health and Indigenous Medicine. The donation has been made to facilitate expenses incurred in the conducting of PCR tests and implementing health and safety advisory programs. The cheque was handed over by Chairman of the COVID-19 Fund Management Committee, Central Bank Governor D.B. Lakshman, to Secretary to the Ministry of Health, Major General Singha. These monies have been granted to purchase relevant equipment for PCR tests conducted at the Sri Jayewardenepura University and to increase the PCR testing capacity at the Jaffna University. The Mahajana Sampatha lottery drawn by the National Lotteries Board completes 50 years this year. In addition, to coincide with the anniversary, a new lottery ticket was introduced yesterday. The ceremony was held, presided over by Chairman of the National Lotteries Board, Lalit P.M. Pereira. The new lottery has been named as Janabhisheka Swarna Jayantiya. A new mobile software was also unveiled to check the results of the new lottery draws. A new T-shirt was also introduced bearing the Mahajana Sampatha brand name. Was the most senior lottery seller was also awarded by the Chairman of the National Lotteries Board.
සෑහෙන දුරකට අපි ප්‍රශස්තම මට්ටමේ වුණාට සෑහෙන දුරකට මහජන සම්පත ඇතුළු ජාතික ලොතරැයි මණ්ඩලයේ.
We'll be back with international news after this break.
Welcome back. A quick look at foreign news. China ordered the United States to close its consulate in the city of Chengdu today, responding to a U.S. demand this week that China close its Houston consulate.
China has ordered the US to shut down its consulate in the city of Chengdu. It's a move widely seen as equal retaliation for Washington ordering Beijing to shut down its own mission in Houston, Texas this week. The order is another sign US-China ties have hit their lowest point in decades. China's foreign ministry said on Friday the Chengdu closure was a fair response to what happened in Houston.
The US move seriously breached international law, the basic norms of international relations, and the terms of the China-US Consular Convention. It gravely harmed China-US relations. The measure taken by China is a legitimate and necessary response to the unreasonable action taken by the US.
Chengdu is one of the 5 US consulates in mainland China, with a 6th major mission in Hong Kong. The news came hours after a major speech by US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on ties to China. He said America and its allies must use, quote, more creative and assertive ways to press the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, to change its ways.
President Nixon once said he feared he had created a Frankenstein by opening the world to the CCP. And here we are.
A source had previously told Reuters that China was considering shutting the US consulate in Wuhan, where the United States withdrew staff early this year as the coronavirus outbreak raged.
Hopes that rise in average global temperatures by 2100 might be kept below 2.5 Celsius can be all but ruled out of greenhouse gas emissions continue at the current rate. New research reassessing the atmosphere's sensitivity to CO2 suggests.
New research from the World Climate Research Programme has found that hopes that the rise in average global temperatures by 2100 might be capped below 2.5 degrees Celsius can be all but ruled out if greenhouse gas emissions continue at the current rate. The study offers the first clear progress in decades toward narrowing the range of temperature rise caused by doubling of carbon dioxide levels since pre-industrial times. Its findings show that doubling would trigger 2.6 to 4.1 degrees Celsius in average warming above pre-industrial levels, putting the lowest rise more than 1 degree above scientists' previous estimated range of 1.5 to 4.5 degrees Celsius. Co-author and climate scientist Zeke Housefather.
The bad news is that if you were hoping that warming just wouldn't end up being much of a problem, that you'd only get a degree or 2 of warming if we double our emission or double our concentrations in the atmosphere, then you should be disappointed because we found that's not very low. But at the same time, we found that some truly catastrophic outcomes where we get like 5 degrees or more warming are also a lot less likely. And so we really found that, you know, climate change is about as bad as we thought it was, that the long-term best estimate of the amount of warming you get in this sort of doubling of atmospheric CO2 is pretty close to accurate.
The scientific consensus that the goal of capping the rise in average global temperatures at 1.5 degrees Celsius, as laid out in the 2015 Paris Climate Accords, is almost certainly out of reach unless greenhouse gas emissions rates fall. The study, which was published in the journal Reviews of Geophysics on Wednesday, relied on computer simulations using satellite observations, historical temperature records, and evidence of prehistoric temperatures. It confirmed that the world is on course for extreme sea level rise and other severe climate impacts. These effects are expected from a rise beyond 2 degrees Celsius. Already, the average global temperature has warmed by about 1.2 degrees Celsius.
A quick look at sports news. Now, dates have been set to hold the Indian Premier League. Thereby, the organisers have decided to hold the IPL on the 19th of September. The tournament is due to be held in the United Arab Emirates, as the Board of Control for Cricket in India had sought permission from the UAE government, for which the organisers say a favourable response has been received. The IPL organisers state that several decisions on the next level of preparations for the tournament will be taken at the next organising committee meeting. Well, that's it for the news this evening. Have a good night.
Good night.